They told me I was too much work, that I asked too many questions, that I held on to things. So they packed up my years in a cardboard box I paid for, handed it over like a favor, and said it was time to move on. I didn't argue. I just took my mug off the shelf, the one I always rinsed before anyone else arrived. Then I walked across the street to the building they forgot was for sale. That's fine. Let them watch me from the window now. I used to get there early, earlier than anyone else. Not because I had to, but because I liked the quiet. I'd unlock the door, flip the sign, and breathe in that old wooden smell, cedar and lemon polish. The same scent from my first week there. I think I stayed for the smell longer than the paycheck. I'd put the kettle on. Always the same tea. Earl Grey, with a slice of lemon if we had it. Just milk if we didn't. The blinds creaked when I turned them. That same sound every morning, like a small bow to the day. The younger ones came in loud. Always laughing, always late. I didn't mind. I used to be them. They called me Mama J. I didn't ask them to. It just happened one winter. Someone caught the flu, I brought soup, and the name stuck like cinnamon on toast. There were birthdays once. Cupcakes on the counter. Little notes scribbled in Sharpie. To the soul of this place. I kept those notes in my drawer. Still do. I never threw away paper someone took the time to fold. I ran the register without looking. My fingers remembered the codes. Pine-scented candles were 21.73. Lavender soap, 11.22. Every now and then, I'd restock the window display. Seasonal. I had a thing for dried oranges and white twinkle lights. People said it made the place feel like home, not just a store. I even fixed the Wi-Fi when it went down. Learned how from YouTube videos during the pandemic. Not that anyone thanked me. They just expected it. We had a stool by the back desk. A little too wobbly. That's where I kept my mug. Not in the cabinet with the others. I didn't want anyone using it by accident. It was navy blue, chipped at the lip. Said, "Take it slow," in peeling cursive. A gift from my daughter. Back when we still exchanged gifts. No one touched that mug. Out of respect, maybe. Or maybe they just didn't want to touch anything old. Once, a new girl asked if I was the owner. I laughed. Said no. Just a relic with keys. But I wasn't lonely. Not really. I liked the silence before the world arrived. The hum of the cooler. The soft chime of the door. I knew which customers had grandkids. Which ones had lost someone last winter. I remembered names, stories, tea preferences. I remembered everything. Because no one else did. Even on my days off, I'd walk by and glance in. Make sure the lights were off. That the windows didn't smear. Sometimes I'd go in anyway. Water the plant by the register. The pot hose that had my name on the tag. That tag disappeared last month. I didn't say anything. Just watered it once more and left. Then I started noticing small things. The kettle wasn't warm when I got in. Someone else had been there before me. The blinds were already turned. Crooked. Receipts left in a mess. Mugs in the sink. No cupcakes. No cards. One Tuesday, the radio changed from old jazz to indie pop. They said the customers liked it better. I nodded. But I turned the volume down when no one was looking. Then someone moved my stool. Said it was a tripping hazard. Replaced it with a metal chair that hurt my knees. They didn't ask. Just told me. Another girl called me Janet instead of Mama J. Said no offense when she corrected herself. But it felt like a curtain had closed. And I was on the wrong side of it. I started getting asked to take shorter shifts. Budget reasons. Just until we settle. I said okay. Of course. Always okay. Until I wasn't even on the schedule 1 week. No call. No message. Just blank. I went in anyway. Clocked in. Did the window. No one stopped me. But no one said thank you either. They just let me be there. I stood by the door that day. Watched the rain slide down the glass. One of the new girls asked if I needed anything. I said no. She smiled like I was her grandmother. I didn't hate her for it. But I hated how it felt. I went home that night and dug out an old photo. Me in the first month of working there. Red scarf. Big smile. holding a ribbon at the opening ceremony. They called me the heart of the shop back then.
Now?
Now, I was the dusty drawer they forgot to open. I was never truly lonely, just quietly replaced.
It was a Thursday.
One of those soft gray mornings when everything outside looked like it had been exhaled. I came in early like always, but the door was already unlocked. The lights were half on. The kettle was whistling. And someone had set the register drawer wrong. I didn't say anything, just fixed it.
Turned the blinds.
Quietly. I was wiping the counter when I heard it. From the back office. The door wasn't closed all the way. A thin sliver of sound slipping out through the crack. I wasn't trying to listen. I was just still. Hands holding a damp cloth midair. Honestly, she's sweet, but exhausting. A laugh. Then, too much emotional weight. Every little thing is a production. I didn't recognize the voice at first, but then another chimed in.
Clearer.
Familiar. I know, but she's been here forever. It's tricky. Silence. Then someone else, younger, said, "We need a fresh vibe. That slow energy? It's holding everything back." They all laughed. Like they weren't talking about a person. Just a cluttered shelf. A dusty lamp. I didn't move. Just folded the cloth. Slowly. Exactly 4 times. They never knew I heard them. But I did. Every word. I could have left right then. But I didn't. I stayed through the morning shift. Smiled.
Poured tea.
Folded napkins. Like nothing had changed. But everything had. Around noon, I found a piece of paper near the trash. It wasn't meant for me. Some kind of meeting prep or agenda. 3 names highlighted. Mine wasn't one of them. Just a note scribbled at the bottom. Review Janet's duties, low ROI. Possibly phase out.
Roy.
Return on investment. I stood there holding the paper like it might catch fire. Like maybe if I folded it hard enough, it would disappear. I didn't take it with me. I just left it on the edge of the recycling bin. But something inside me folded too. On the way out that evening, I reached under the counter.
Pulled out my old lease agreement.
Not for the store, but for the first space we ever rented together. Back when the business was still a pop-up, and I was the only one willing to sign my name alongside the owners. It had my handwriting on the back. A list of things we wanted to offer someday. Warm lighting. Fair wages. Community first. No one left behind. My handwriting looked smaller than I remembered. Careful. Hopeful. I tucked the lease into my purse. Didn't know why. Just needed to. That night, I sat in my kitchen with the lights off. Held that piece of paper like it had weight.
It did.
Not just because of what it said, but because of everything we were back then. They used to call me the Roots. Said I kept the place grounded.
Now
I was too much emotional weight. The next day, I came in just before open. Something was missing. I looked around. Couldn't place it. Then I saw the shelf by the window, where my potos used to sit. The one I brought in during the first month. Nursed through winters. Pruned with careful fingers.
Gone.
In its place, a white ceramic vase with dried lavender and a tag that read, "Styled by Cam." Cam was the new girl. I walked over slowly. The sunlight caught the edge of the shelf. Dusted gold across the glass. I didn't touch the vase. Didn't say a word. Just stood there. Long enough for the quiet to settle around me like fog. My mug was still there. On the back desk. I picked it up. Ran my thumb along the chip. The crack hadn't spread. Not yet. The room was silent. But everything inside me was screaming. I stayed 1 more hour. Took inventory. Refold scarves no one bought. Answered the phone with a voice that didn't shake. Then I went home. Didn't cry. Didn't speak. Just poured a cup of tea into that same chipped mug. Stared at the lease on the table. Watched the steam rise like a question I no longer wanted to answer. And there, in the silence, something settled in me. Not anger. Not even pain. Just a deep, deliberate knowing. It was already over. They just hadn't said it yet. But I heard them. I saw them. And one day soon, they'd see me too. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing about being edged out. It comes soft, polite, almost forgettable, like frost creeping in under the door. You don't feel it until your hands won't move the way they used to. It started with the group texts. At first, I thought I was just missing them. New phone, bad signal. Maybe they forgot I preferred email. Then I saw the lunch photos. Posted online. All of them at that cafe, on 9th. The one I introduced them to. Smiling over oat milk lattes and tiny cupcakes. They captioned it Team Reset. I wasn't in it. I wasn't even near it. I told myself it was probably last minute. Probably just a quick outing. I told myself a lot of things back then. Then came the shift changes. Hey Janet, we're thinking of switching you to Sundays. Just easier for the flow. I used to do Fridays. Fridays were mine. The regulars came in just to talk. Miss Evie with her knitting bag, Ron with his stories about birdwatching. Sundays were silent. The shop felt hollow, like I didn't belong to it anymore. I didn't argue, just nodded, said, whatever works. I said that a lot, too. Next, the playlist changed. We used to play jazz in the mornings. Something soft, Coltrane, maybe a little Ella. Customers always commented on it. Then one day it was indie pop. High-pitched voices and fast drums. The kind of music that doesn't let your thoughts breathe. I turned it down. Barely a notch. Cam turned it back up.
Didn't say anything.
Just smiled. The kind that makes you feel like the guest in your own kitchen. There was a candle I used to light behind the register. Sandalwood.
Warm.
Subtle. One day I found it in the break room with a post-it. Do not use, scent policy. That candle had been burning for 5 years. Nobody said a word. I started getting left off meeting invites. They talk behind the register, whispering half-formed ideas, planning displays, setting themes, while I folded scarves or stocked soaps. I heard them say, "Oh, we'll loop her in," more than once. They never did. Once, I gently suggested moving the tea corner near the window again. Customers used to linger there. Cam said, "It's not really the aesthetic anymore." I nodded, pretended not to feel my heart sink. The same corner where I used to comfort staff through breakups. Where someone once told me I made this place feel like home. That same week, I left a tin of peppermint bark in the break room. Holiday tradition. I tied it with a ribbon. Handwrote a note. Thank you. For another year. It sat untouched. For 4 days. Then someone put it on the free table. Next to expired coupons and mismatched Tupperware lids. No one said thank you. I took it home. Threw it away. Not out of anger. Out of something quieter. That week, I stayed late to help fold the new shipment of wraps. No one asked me to. I just knew the staff was tired. The next morning, they posted a photo on the shop's page. Thanks to Cam for staying late to prep the new arrivals. They tagged her. Not me. I thought about correcting it. I didn't. One afternoon, I noticed something strange. My name tag. It was gone. The one with Mama J engraved in silver, tucked into the corner of the display wall. In its place, a new, clean tag that just read Janet. No one mentioned the change. No one asked. I stood there a long time,
Just looking at it.
like it might turn back if I waited long enough. Once, I forgot to lock the back door. Just once in all these years. Cam found it. Next morning, she made a joke about forgetfulness loud enough for the others to hear. I laughed too. Quietly. But I felt it. That's how it works. 1,000 paper cuts. So thin you barely notice. Until suddenly, you're bleeding. That night, I pulled out a box of old things. From the early days. Polaroids from the first pop-up. A staff photo, me in the center holding the ribbon. We all wore the same t-shirts. Built by us. I ran my hand over that photo. We meant it back then. Every word. Now I was just a ghost in the room.
Seen.
But not spoken to. I remembered something Cam said once months ago, after I helped her fix the receipt printer. You're such a sweetheart, Mama J. But you really don't have to do so much. It's not your job to fix everything. I laughed then. But now I heard what she meant. Not appreciation. Dismissal. She didn't want my help. She didn't want me there. They all didn't. Not anymore. But still, I showed up. Still folded the corners of the tissue paper just right. Still opened the blinds gently so they wouldn't crack. Still washed my mug each evening and placed it on the shelf. Still smiled when they walked in, even when they didn't meet my eyes. Because I wasn't raised to walk out. I was raised to stay until the work was done. But it never felt done anymore. And somewhere in the quiet corners of the store, neither was I. It was a Wednesday. Rain tapping soft on the skylight. A quiet kind of day. Not slow, just hushed. The kind where people whisper even though no one asked them to. I came in early again. Not to be helpful. Just to breathe. Sometimes you need four walls that remember you. But that morning, the lights were already on. A display had been moved. The tea shelf gone. I stood there, staring at the blank wall where it used to be. No warmth. No kettle. No quiet welcome. Just space. Cam walked past me holding a clipboard. Oh, hey Janet. We're reworking that corner. More room for inventory. I looked down at her shoes. New white sneakers. No scuffs. I see, I said. That was all. I went to the back. Sat down on the metal stool they gave me. The one that replaced my old wooden chair. The seat was cold. I glanced over at the lost and found bin. And there it was. The bracelet. My bracelet. Thin silver with a tiny charm shaped like a fern. I'd worn it every day for years. A gift from my sister, the last one before she passed. I took it off last week while washing mugs. Left it by the sink. I figured someone would know it was mine. But here it was. Lumped in with half-used lip balm and broken sunglasses. No one asked if I lost it. No one looked. I picked it up. Turned it in my hand.
Still cool.
Still whole. But it didn't feel like mine anymore.
I didn't cry.
I don't cry at work. But something pulled in me, right beneath the ribs. A slow unraveling. I walked out front. Stood by the window. Outside, the rain softened the edges of the street. A blur of brake lights. Puddles, motion. I closed my eyes. And then, from nowhere, a memory. My daughter. 3 years old. Dancing barefoot in that same corner by the register. Back when the store was new. And the wood still smelled like hope. She had a plastic tiara on. Was spinning in slow circles, laughing. I remember her saying, "Mama, this place is like a treasure box." I hadn't thought of that in years. Funny how something beautiful comes back just as everything else falls apart. I leaned my forehead against the glass. Felt the cool of it. Then Cam's voice behind me. "Janet? You okay?" I turned. Smiled. "Just thinking," I said. "Okay. Well, when you get a sec, we need help restocking. The soaps are misaligned." She walked off before I could answer. The soaps. Always the soaps. I looked over at the shelf. Perfectly lined bottles. Labels all forward. Each one exactly where it was supposed to be. Except me. I wasn't where I used to be. Not to them. Not even to myself. I stood there a long time. Not moving. Not pretending. And I felt it. The moment. The exact second something snapped inside me. Not loud. Not even painful. Just final. Like a bird landing on a branch that won't hold weight anymore. Have you ever remembered something small, just when everything felt like it was falling apart? That memory of her dancing, it stayed with me. All day. All night. I went home and pulled out a drawer full of old pictures. Birthday parties in the shop. Ribbon cuttings. Holiday windows I designed with my own hands. A photo of me holding a thank you cake the team made years ago. It said, "To our rock." I ran my finger over the icing in the picture. Cracked at the edges.
Just like the real one had been.
That night I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table in silence. Mug in hand. The chipped one with "Take it slow" barely visible now. And I thought, what happens when the rock is no longer needed? Not even acknowledged. Just stepped over. Forgotten. Empty. Forgotten.
Perfect.
Those were the only words that stayed with me. The next morning I didn't get up early. Didn't flip the sign. Didn't check the windows. I sat in bed and watched the light move across the ceiling. I stayed there for hours. And, for once, no one called to ask where I was. Power doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't always kick and scream. Sometimes it just stands up and walks out the door without needing to explain. That's what I did. No speech. No tears. No performance. Just a Tuesday. Cool breeze, blue sky. Everything looking normal. Except me. I came in wearing something I hadn't worn in a while. A dark green sweater with buttons down the back. I used to save it for holidays.
For days I wanted to feel like myself.
I didn't say hello when I walked in. Didn't ask who was on register.
Didn't even stop to clock in. Just went straight to the back.
Opened my locker. It still had my name on it. Taped, faded, curling at the edges. Inside, my mug. A tin of tea. A scarf I always meant to bring home. And the photo. Me and the original team. Standing in front of the first pop-up with smiles that reached the corners of our eyes. I gathered them slowly. No rush. No panic. Then I looked around that tiny locker for the last time. So much of me had lived there. Waited. Stayed quiet. Stayed loyal. I peeled my name off the door. Folded it. Tucked it into my pocket. Then I walked to the front. Placed my key on the counter. Right beside the register I used to know by heart. Nobody saw me. Or maybe they did, but they didn't think it meant anything. Cam was rearranging soap again. As if the world couldn't function without perfectly centered labels. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt done. Not defeated. Not bitter. Just full. Full of everything I'd given. Full of the silence I'd swallowed. Full of the truth they never cared to ask. I turned and walked to the window. The same one I used to clean every Friday morning. And I did the only thing I needed to do. The silent scene rule. The moment I had rehearsed in my mind without even knowing it. I took my mug, the chipped blue one, and placed it on the windowsill. Handle facing inward. Like a goodbye turned sideways. I didn't look back. Didn't wait for someone to stop me. Didn't explain a thing. I opened the door. Stepped out. And closed it behind me. I didn't slam the door. I just closed it finally. It was the softest sound I ever made. And the loudest thing they never heard. Outside, the air smelled different. Like lemons and pavement. I stood still for a moment. Let the sun touch my face. Like it hadn't in months. Across the street, the building was still there. Vacant. A little worn. But standing. Its windows were dusty. But the bones were strong. Like me. I crossed without looking both ways. Didn't need to. I knew the timing of the street like I knew the back of my hand. The sign in the window read "For sale by owner." It had been there for weeks. I'd noticed it a dozen times.
But that morning I saw it.
Truly saw it. I wrote down the number. Called it from the bench outside. The seller answered on the second ring. Said he was just about to pull the listing. Said he'd been waiting for someone who wouldn't turn it into a smoothie bar. I laughed. The first real laugh in weeks. We set a meeting. Nothing fancy. Just enough to start something that had been waiting inside me all along. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just moves. Quiet.
Certain.
Unapologetic. That evening I went home. Boiled water. Poured it into the same mug I hadn't used since the shift began. Only this time it was for me. Only me. I watched the steam rise. Watched it curl upward and disappear. Then I opened a blank notebook. Wrote 3 words on the first page. Begin again here. Have you ever stayed quiet just to keep the peace? Now, ask yourself. What happens when the peace you're protecting starts to kill the pieces of you? You leave.
Softly. Deliberately.
And you don't ask for the key back. Because you know the door doesn't matter anymore. A week passed. Then another. No calls. No questions. No one checked in. It's funny how people forget the hands that held them up. Even funnier how fast they adjust to your absence when they never really saw you in the first place. I thought I was ready to let go. I thought I had. Until the envelope came. Cream-colored. No return address. Folded clean, like it had never been touched by a human hand. I knew the handwriting. Sharp loops. always too confident for its own good. Inside, a notice. Ownership transfer.
The store had changed hands.
New partners. New paperwork. But not new memories. No, those were still mine. Still etched into the grain of the old floors and the worn corners of the counter. And then I saw it, buried near the bottom in the fine print. My name, scratched out, in red ink, like I'd never been there at all. No, thank you for building this. No, in honor of your time. Just
Removed.
I laid the paper on my kitchen table, smoothed it out with the side of my palm. It trembled under the weight of something I couldn't name. They hadn't just replaced me. They erased me. That was the deeper betrayal. Not the firing. Not the silence. But the rewriting. They made it so the story started without me. As if I hadn't signed the original lease. As if I hadn't been there that first winter. When the pipes froze. And we sold mittens from a folding table.
With fingers too stiff to count change.
I went to my closet. Pulled out the old storage box I hadn't touched in years. Inside. Photos.
Receipts.
Blueprints. My original investment paperwork, the silent partner agreement from 2005. Signed by me, notarized in blue ink. $10,000. Back when I had no business giving anyone that kind of money. But I believed in the dream. In us. I even found the napkin we wrote our first product list on. It still smelled faintly of lavender oil and hand soap. But none of that was in the records now. I was gone. Wiped like chalk from a rain-soaked sidewalk. And then I found it. The hidden object from months ago. The back of my original lease. The one I had kept for no reason I could explain at the time. My handwriting still faint but readable. A list. Honor the people. Build with care. Share the wins. Remember who started it. That list was the first code we lived by. We had it framed once, hanging by the stockroom. Then someone moved it. Then someone forgot. Now they remembered none of it. I sat there for a long time. Tea gone cold. Curtains half closed. Light fading across the kitchen floor like the tail end of a story no one wanted to finish. I looked at that deed. That scratched out name. And I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I remembered. I remembered the first time I taught Cam how to balance the drawer. How she cried in the back room the day her engagement fell apart. I brought her tissues. Rubbed her back. She thanked me like I had saved her life. And now? Now she'd signed her name on top of mine. I remembered painting the front door, navy blue, not black, because I believed every business should feel like a welcome. I remembered pressing herbs into wax by hand, labeling them one by one. I remembered when the power went out for 2 days during the storm, and I slept in the shop with a space heater to keep the inventory from freezing. They didn't remember that. But I did. And now I knew. They never wanted to remember. It wasn't oversight. It was strategy. Get rid of the woman who held too much memory. Too much truth. Because people like me carry history like it's holy. And people like them want to start clean. It was nostalgia wrapped in heartbreak. Every corner I had touched, now repainted. Every system I created, now renamed. I didn't want the shop back. Not anymore. But I wanted them to know. You can paint over walls. But you can't unbuild what I built. The next morning, I put everything from that box into a canvas bag. The photos. The receipts. The signed investment slip. And the lease with my handwriting on the back. I walked it across the street. To the building with the dusty windows. The one I was about to make mine. I unlocked the door with a new key. It stuck at first. Then clicked. The air inside was cold.
Stale.
Empty in the way that invites possibility. I walked to the window. Placed the deed on the counter. And opened every blind. Let the light pour in. This was mine now. Not revenge. Not noise. Just a reclamation. Of story. Of space. Of self. They took me off the record. But they couldn't take the truth. That building. That new, wide, breathing space. Was going to hold everything they tried to forget. Quietly. Gracefully. And in plain sight. There's a kind of peace that doesn't come from winning. It comes from walking away before you're asked to. from choosing to bloom in the soil they thought was beneath you. That's what I felt when I opened the front door of the building next door with my own key. The same door I used to glance at from the old shop window. Vacant, faded, forgotten.
It was mine now.
Not out of spite, not for revenge, but because sometimes starting over is the most radical kind of justice. The paint inside was peeling. The floorboards creaked. There was dust in every corner, like time had been sleeping here. And yet it felt like exhaling. I spent the first week just listening to the groans of the wood, the silence of empty rooms, the echo of my own breath as I walked through each space with my palms open, like I was blessing it. No plans, no staff, no logo, just intention. I opened every drawer, swept every inch by hand, lit a single candle on the counter, sandalwood, like the one they banned, and let it burn down slow. Then I brought in the mug, the chipped blue one, carried it in both hands like it was sacred, set it on a windowsill that hadn't seen sunlight in months. Same mug, new light. I didn't want another store. I wanted a place, a space for the people like me, the ones too much, too careful, too emotional, too everything. I put up a chalkboard sign out front. Coming soon. The slow room. No explanation. Just an invitation. Word spread. Whispers at first. Then knocks. Not from old coworkers. No, they still stared through their glass like I was a rumor. But from strangers. And not so strangers. Sasha, who used to work weekends with me years ago, stopped by. Said she saw the lights on. Asked if I was building something. I said, not building. Remembering. She stayed and helped me clean. Then came Miriam, the retired teacher who used to buy lavender candles in bulk. She brought a tray of lemon bars and a basket of marigolds. Something warm for your new beginning, she said. I set the flowers in the window, right beside the mug. Every day I added something new. A kettle.
Books.
A coat rack made from driftwood I found near the lake. I painted the walls myself. Soft gray with a hint of blue. Quiet like breath. There was a chair I found on the curb, curved arms, velvet seat. I reupholstered it. Set it in the corner. Didn't even realize until later. It was the same corner where my daughter once danced in circles. Now it held stillness. Grace. The slow room became more than a name. It became a promise. A space for those who move at their own rhythm. Who feel deeply. Who remember birthdays and bring their own mugs. We didn't sell much. Just things that mattered. Pressed flowers. Handwritten letters. Loose-leaf tea in glass jars with ribbon. People came. Not many, but the right ones. Some sat and stayed. Some left notes in the basket by the door. Thank you for making space. This feels like permission to breathe. And every night before I left, I rinsed my mug. Placed it back on the sill. Watched the light curve around it like an embrace. One evening, while restocking a shelf, I found it again. The lease. The one I'd hidden in my purse that day. With my handwriting on the back. I framed it. Hung it behind the counter. Didn't label it. Didn't explain it. Just let it hang. The roots of a story no one else bothered to water. It wasn't just for me anymore. It was for the girl who cried after her first job rejection. For the widow who needed somewhere soft to land. For the mother who lost herself between grocery lists and silent dinners. They all came through my door. And none of them had to explain a thing. Because I knew. I'd been them. Still was.
There was strength in that.
The kind that doesn't raise its voice. The kind that chooses. And one day, I made the most sacred choice of all. I gave something away. The chair in the corner, the one I reupholstered with care. A woman came in and sat in it. She was shaking. Didn't say much. Just clutched a crumpled paper in her hand. A custody ruling.
I didn't ask.
She sat for hours. When she finally stood to leave, she touched the chair and whispered, "This saved me today." I told her, "Take it." She blinked. Tried to refuse. But I insisted. Some things belong to more than just us.
She cried.
Held my hand like it was a railing. And just like that, The chair was hers. Not sold. Not loaned.
Given.
Because that's what healing sometimes looks like. Not reclaiming everything they took, but offering it forward, on your own terms. Would you have walked away or taken everything back? I didn't want the old store. I didn't want their apology. I wanted this. My hands in soil. My name on the deed. My story on the walls they can't reach. I gave myself the peace they refused to grant me. And in doing so, I gave it to others too. It started with a message. No greeting.
No subject line.
Just one sentence. Hey Janet, would love to catch up sometime. Things are shifting.
Cam.
I stared at it for a long time. The kind of long where the kettle boils and cools again. I didn't respond. Didn't delete it either. Just let it sit in the inbox like an old key that no longer fit a door. The next one came a week later. From Owen, the manager they hired after I left. The one who once told me I was a stabilizing presence and then ghosted me when the layoff started. Hi Janet, we were wondering if you'd be open to chatting about a potential collaboration. Your new space has great energy. Energy. That was the word they used to say I didn't match. Now, it was something they wanted. Funny how energy becomes valuable when they can't manufacture it themselves. I still said nothing. But I left the door of the slow room unlocked that day. Not for them. Just for whoever needed warmth. Around noon, I looked up and saw 3 of them standing across the street. Outside the old shop. The lights were off. Shutters half drawn. Business had dipped. That much I'd heard. Murmurs from customers, a few whispers online. Reviews saying the new place felt cold. Transactional. Forgettable. They hadn't said my name, of course. But absence has a shape. And mine had started to cast a shadow. I watched them through the window. All dressed the same, holding to-go coffees, trying to act like it wasn't falling apart. Then Cam turned. Met my eyes. Just for a second. I didn't flinch. Didn't wave. Just sipped my tea. The mug felt heavy in my hands, not with anger. Just history. That afternoon, she walked in. No knock. No call. Just the soft jingle of the bell above the door. Same bell I installed with my daughter years ago. Still chimed low, like wind through lace. Cam looked different. Tired. Shoulders tucked in. She glanced around slowly, like she needed permission to stand still. This place is beautiful, she said. I nodded. Thank you. Silence. She looked toward the shelf, the one with the photo from the pop-up days. The one I put back up without asking anyone's permission. I didn't know you kept those, she said. I didn't answer. Some silences are meant to be kept. She shifted her weight. Tried a different tone. We've been struggling a little. Thinking of restructuring. A refresh. Her eyes scanned the room again. Then landed on me. I was hoping maybe we could work together? Share events. Cross-promote. As if she hadn't erased me. As if I were a product to be rebranded. I reached under the counter. Pulled out a small box. Inside, my name tag. Mama J, silver lettering slightly worn. I placed it gently on the counter between us. She looked at it. Didn't touch it. Just blinked.
Once.
I remember when we gave you that, she whispered. No, I said. You gave me the new one. That one I made for myself. A pause. She cleared her throat. I thought you'd be glad to hear from us. I tilted my head. Why? No bitterness. Just a question. She didn't have an answer. Instead, her eyes flicked to the chair in the corner, the one where the woman sat and cried.
Gone now. Given.
Cam nodded once, slowly. Then, it's good to see you. I smiled, soft and unreadable. For a moment, I said, I pitied them. Then I remembered who I was. She left quietly. Didn't buy anything. Didn't stay long. Just enough to realize she wasn't needed here. Later that week, a voicemail came from the old owner. Heard I had the deed now. Said he always knew I had the vision. Offered to consult on business strategies. I deleted it, without listening to the rest. Some doors aren't closed out of anger. They're just closed because peace lives behind them. One evening, I was locking up when I saw them again, standing across the street in the dark, watching.
I didn't wave.
Just turned off the lights and left the window open, not for them to look in, but so I could look out freely.
Finally.
Do you believe quiet dignity is stronger than revenge? Because here's what they never understood. You can't shame someone who has nothing to prove. You can't erase someone who knows their worth. And you cannot reclaim what was never yours to begin with. Power doesn't always come back to shout. Sometimes, it just smiles, sips tea, and leaves the door unlocked. For everything but you. The first frost came early that year. Silver on the windows. Quiet in the air. I opened the slow room just before dawn. Didn't flip the sign right away. Just stood in the center of the space and let the stillness wrap around me. There was nothing left to prove. No one left to chase. Just the breath of a place built in my own rhythm. That morning, I lit a candle. Lavender and sandalwood. Same scent they once banned. Now it burned freely, right where the register used to be. I watched it flicker. There was no music playing. Only the sound of steam from the kettle. And the soft creak of wood settling into winter. I pulled out a small chair from the corner. A simple thing, wide enough to fold into. I had bought it at an estate sale, upholstered it myself, then left it untouched for weeks. I finally sat in it.
First time.
It faced the window. And, across the street, the old shop.
Dark.
Vacant. Curtains drawn. I heard it shut down officially last Friday.
No ceremony.
No farewell post. Just silence. I watched two people remove the last shelf through the back door. A van idled beside the curb. Boxes packed and loaded without a sound. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel sad. Just steady. Across the room, sunlight slipped across the floor. Landed on the wall where I had framed the back of my lease. The one with my handwriting. The real origin story. I walked over to it slowly. Touched the glass with the back of my fingers. And for the first time, I whispered the words out loud. Honor the people. Build with care. Share the wins. Remember who started it. I had. Even when they didn't.
Especially then.
I pulled open the drawer beneath the frame. Inside, a small velvet box. It held the bracelet. Silver, fern-shaped charm. The one they left in Lost and Found. I had it cleaned. Polished. It glowed under the morning light. I slipped it on. It no longer felt like a memory of what was taken. It felt like a choice I reclaimed. Peace, I realized, doesn't always come when things end. Sometimes, it arrives when you stop asking for permission to exist. The old me used to wait for acknowledgement. Used to crave recognition. Used to think being seen meant being safe. Now, I was the one doing the seeing, the holding, the creating. Customers came and went throughout the day. They left stories, notes, laughter. One woman brought her daughter in and whispered, "This is where I come when I need to feel like myself again."
I didn't need more than that. I didn't need a plaque. Or an award.
Or a headline. I just needed space.
My space.
And the freedom to keep it soft. Later that night, I walked down to the river. Tucked the keys from the old shop into my coat pocket. The same ones they never asked me to return. I stood at the edge of the water. Watched the ripples catch the light. Held the keys one last time. Cool in my palm. Heavy in memory. And then, I dropped them in. One soft splash. No drama. No audience. Just release. Not because I needed to forget, but because I chose not to carry what no longer needed me. The river carried them away. So quiet, I could barely hear it. I turned back, walking slower than I needed to, letting the streetlights guide me home. When I returned, the candle was still burning. The room was still warm. The mug was still in its place on the windowsill, catching the reflection of everything I had built. This time, I didn't pick it up. I let it sit, because it didn't have to move anymore. Neither did I. Have you ever built peace without asking for it? I didn't burn bridges. I outgrew them. I didn't scream when they silenced me. I built a place where silence was sacred. I was never the echo. I was the voice they tried to silence. And the key I never gave became the one that freed me.